Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Professor Frank van Vliet. Some of you know me because you're in my class, and we're running this session in parallel with my regular class. And welcome those that are coming in via Zoom. Can everybody hear me okay? Larissa, Pat, can you hear me? Can you just do a thumbs up? Thumbs up. Chat. Yeah. Chat. Yes. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. So I'm going to get started here. So this afternoon's discussion, probably about half an hour or so. It's called leveraging the fear of failure and how to scale your business. So one of the challenges that startup companies have is getting past that initial fear of growth, right? You get caught up in the day-to-day operations of your business, and you're down in the mud, you're wrestling back and forth, but you don't take the time to go to the balcony and look down at your business and figure out where I'm going to take it. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that today. So let's start with 8 out of 10 businesses are going to fail. That's not a great way to think about being an entrepreneur, right? But failure is not so bad. So reason number one, though, why people fail is they really weren't in touch with who the customer is. When I say the customer, I mean who's going to give them the money? Where does the cash come from that's going to keep the business alive? There's no real differentiation in the marketplace with your goods or services. You may think you have the next thing, the next greatest cheese slicer, or the next version of sliced bread, right? Something that's just going to change the game, but the market's going to go, it's just another me too coming into the marketplace, right? So you got a lot of research to do, but that's one of the reasons that the product just isn't that different. You know, one of my favorite failures, everybody's familiar with the iPod, and what you may not know is that Microsoft released something about the same time called the Zoom, Z-U-N-E, and it really was not very well designed. Steve Jobs did a wonderful job with the ergonomics of the iPod. He made it cool to be part of the iPod club, where Microsoft created a technically great product, but it was just me, right? And nobody bought into it. So it really wasn't any different. For Apple made their product feel like it was different. Perception became reality in that case. Both the two products were equally as good in terms of technical functionality. Failure to communicate what your value proposition is in clear, concise, and compelling fashion. What sets you apart? What makes your goods or services so special that somebody's going to want to step up to the plate and give you money for those goods or services? Number 4, yeah, it happens, leadership breakdown. You know, you start off, a couple of buddies starting a business up in the back corner, and one of them is really energetic and wants to get it done. The other one's like, I'd rather go fishing, right? Just not that as engaged. So you have different drive. There's nothing wrong with that, but that can implode the business, right? So a lot of times, these are partnership businesses often that will fail, and one partnership needs to buy the other partner out in order to keep it going, and that can get expensive, and so that's obviously a big problem as the company grows in particular. Founder issues. Inability to nail a profitable business model with proven revenue streams. We're back to that number one thing. Show me the money. How are you going to get paid for your goods or services? Now, some companies have had some success without laying out what that revenue stream is going to look like. One of my favorite ones is Facebook, right? Facebook collected data. And when they launched their IPO, they really weren't making any money. They hadn't really started charging people for anything yet. But what they had was data. And as they got enough followers, they eventually had an audience that they could sell the data to potential marketers, right? So I will admit, I bought shares at Facebook at $36 a share when the IPO first came up. I bought a lot, I think 70 shares, right? And the next day it went down about $20 a share. And the bottom fell out of it. I think the last time I looked, it's almost $200 a share. I mean, it's done quite well. Why? Because they eventually figured out a model for making money, and they make a lot of it. Right? They know everything about us. So the inability to make that profitable business model is the kiss of death for a business. So it's only natural to be cautious, right? We're all cautious when we start off and to avoid risks, but that can get you in trouble. The fear of growing your business can hold you back if you're not willing to take some risks. Calculated risks, but take some risks. So this fear forces you to play safe, right? Don't step outside of the sandbox because you might get hurt. It's blocking you off from a path of abundance, right? More, be able to get more. You stay in your safe zone and you don't step outside of it. It's limiting your chances to scale the business. Think growth. You need to grow in order to survive. If you don't grow, you're going to go the way of the dodo bird. So you got to figure out a way to grow your business. It's capping your potential, obviously, to earn more money. And it's creating an unhealthy force that's impacting every area of your life. Gives you extra stress. So, according to Albert Einstein, failure is success in progress. Right? Failure is success in process. All right, well, that's maybe not such a great picture of failure, but I actually can relate to this picture because about a year ago, I'm an avid cyclist, and about a year ago, I had a small crash. Now I'm old, so when I crash, I don't just scrape my face off the pavement and get up and keep going. I break. I'm like Humpty Dumpty. So I had shoulder surgery, 3 torn ligaments, partially disconnected muscle. You can imagine I was pretty fearful of getting back on a bike. Well, I will tell you I'm back. It's been a year. I had 4 months where I couldn't ride because of post-surgery issues. I'm riding 100, 120 miles a week. That's what I ride. Now, am I a little more cautious? Sure. But I overcame that fear. Well, business is the same way. You know, we're people. We're running our business. We're afraid of the impact that something negative will have on our ability to be successful. A couple of business failures that some may have never heard of before, but you didn't know that Bill Gates declared bankruptcy with his first business that he launched. His first business was a traffic data device for measuring traffic and digitizing that information. It went nowhere quickly, right? He had a unique idea, interesting product concept, but he just couldn't get a market for it. So we learned from that, right? We learned from that. Sony, the founder of Sony, Akira Morita, his first product he came out with was an electric rice cooker. Now, you'd think in Japan that would be a home run, right? Because rice is a staple. But the thing burnt rice. It just didn't work very well. He sold only about 100 units and went back to the drawing board and said, I got to start again. So it was not a successful product. People were happy with that, what they already had. The pots that they cooked in worked just fine. This really wasn't a game changer. Yeah, it was electric, but the old-fashioned rice cooking pots were good enough, right? So understand your competition. And Colonel Saunders, the great Colonel Saunders, he didn't make his first $1 million until he was 65 years of age. So he had a lot of failures along his way. And his recipe, initially, he wasn't trying to open up a Kentucky Fried Chicken store. He was trying to get other restaurants to use his recipe in his store and have the restaurant kind of be the sales organization for the chicken, right? He had 1,000 rejections before somebody said, yeah, okay, I'll try. Now that takes a lot of persistence to pull your socks up and keep going, right? Somebody says no 1,000 times. Then you've got to be tenacious. But he was, and he eventually made it pretty successful, obviously. Henry Ford and the Detroit Automobile Company. Everybody knows the Ford Motor Company, but before the Ford Motor Company, he had a business called the Detroit Automobile Company. And it went out of business in 1901. In the early car days, each car was made one of. There was no mass production, and they were expensive. There wasn't even interchangeable parts. So he learned from that, and he was not good at competing with the other players that were really good at making those one-of expensive cars. And the only people that could afford cars were well-to-do people. So his model, when he came out with the Ford Model Company, he learned from this and said, I got to get something where I can get the price down so I can appeal to a section of the market that's not being curtailed to at all, and that's the average worker, right? So I'm going to make an automobile that's affordable. In order to make it affordable, I got to mass produce it. and I will make one model in one color. Okay, you can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? I'm going to have interchangeable parts, which at that time was a relatively new concept. We take that for granted that you could take a wheel off one car and put it on another. But back in the day, everything was custom made, and so it would be close, but you might have to modify it a little bit to get it fit. So he went for mass production, interchangeability, and one model vehicle. In order to do that, he drove the price down of it, which made it affordable. The idea was that every one of his workers would have an automobile in his garage. So he learned big time from his first bankruptcy. So view failure as an opportunity, not as a negative event. Okay? So be prepared. Tip number one here is be prepared. Embrace the fact that failure can happen at any moment, right? It can happen. It's not the end of the world. Have a business continuity plan in place, still no guarantees. Who planned for COVID-19, right? So you want to have some what-if plans. Here's my customer base and I'm going after. This is the one that looks like it's going to generate the most revenue for me. What if that one doesn't work, right? Where do I go from here? What's the next one? And your business plan is probably going to be written in chalk. You've got to be prepared to make changes based on the feedback from the marketplace. One of my favorite businesses that started out about 15 years ago, ahead of the craze for e-bikes, was an e-bike company that all our market research said the opportunity for this product is universities and colleges, right? Have them on campuses, particularly the big campuses, maybe not so much University of Baltimore, but big campuses that are sprawling, right? You're gonna get from one building to the other, have them all available to everybody. It went in nowhere. It turned out that popularity for that product was in a market segment that they had not even thought of. Elderly people living in retirement communities in the warm states, Florida, Arizona, California, right? The over 60 communities, these things sold like hotcakes, which still is a little scary concept, thinking that Granny's riding an e-bike. But with that said, that ended up being their customer base, which they did not plan on initially. So be prepared, you're going to change. Things are going to happen to make you change. Failure is not the end of the world, be ready to adapt. All right. Don't let fear rule you. Don't be afraid of growth. Don't be afraid of taking that step forward. Unchecked fear can play crippling mind games on you. The more afraid you are of taking chances, the less you're going to want to do anything, right? Avoid rationalizing your fear. It's easy to talk yourself into why being a little afraid of this is the right course of action. No, don't do that. Seize opportunities and don't let failure to dictate your life. You take that on your personal side, not just your business side, right? And you know what? If your business fails, what's the worst thing that could happen? You're gonna get a job, right? You might have to get a job for a while. We rethink and regroup and come back and pick up the pieces and go again. Okay, so you went from whatever business you started, whatever concept, to sweeping floors somewhere at $10 now, or even $14 now. Maybe flipping burgers at McDonald's. It's okay. It's a temporary step while you regroup and come get things back together. So don't dwell on your mistakes. When you fall off the horse, get right back on, right? Like me falling off my bike, I got back on. A little reluctant. I won't say it wasn't, but I'm back on, right? Do take the time to figure out why the mistake occurred. Okay. Was it poor direction within how you were grooming your employees? Did you not give them the appropriate operating manual? I'm working with a small startup right now called the Dancing Potato, and it's a food business in Lexington Market, and she makes potatoes, right? They're cool, they're great, they're custom recipe, and she does a phenomenal job. But one of her challenges is she doesn't pass the baton to her employees. So all the knowledge, all the information, only she can make it, right? In her mind, can make it right. You're not going to be able to grow your business if you own all the information and don't pass it on to your employees. Get your employees to think and feel like you do, understand your why you're in that business. They need to be embraced and become part of it. Learn from your mistakes and just move on, right? Don't brush them under the carpet, learn from them and move forward. All right, always stay positive. You know, it's really easy to get down on yourself when something negative happens in your company. Don't worry about it. You have to show a positive face, particularly if you have employees. right? Because your negative energy will really easily transfer over to your employees. So you're going to be cognizant. Always look for the silver lining in every single situation. Say no to negativity. Zig Ziglar, a famous motivational speaker, said it's your attitude more than your aptitude that will determine your altitude. I actually think that's one of the great lines in life, right? You'll see that in the workplace. You'll see that happy-go-lucky person, maybe not the brightest first coworker you've ever had, and he's getting the promotion or she's getting the promotion, and you're not because you're a little more timid and quiet, right? So it's the attitude. They're a positive, outgoing person that is more than your smarts in terms of growth up the ladder. So even in your own business, you want to have people that have the right attitude. They don't fit your model. They don't fit how you think. And they don't address your why you're in business the same way you do. Then you've not done a good job recruiting or training that person. Take responsibility. Tip number 5, admit your mistakes, embrace them, don't blame others, and find solutions. And again, move on, move forward. Remember, you see your failures more than anyone else does, right? Because you're at a microscopic view of your business. Everyone around you might go, hey, may not even notice that something bad happened, right? But you see that you take it very personally. So don't worry about it so much. Failing in business does not make you individually a failure. You learn from it, right? Mitigate the fear of failing with patience. Patience. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your team members. Patience. Patience is a virtue. There's a reason for that. How do I avoid failure? How do I make sure I don't fail? Well, you really can't 100%. You probably will fail. I know it sounds like a motivational speaker. You're going to fail. Get over it, right? No, just count on the fact that you will have some failures. Sometimes there might be small failures. Doesn't mean your business is going to go bankrupt. Sometimes it's an item in your product offering that goes nowhere, and you're going to come up with something else within your business. Doesn't mean the whole business is necessarily going to fail. But there are some things you can do to maximize your chances for success. Some of these include research your business thoroughly, research your idea thoroughly. Research your business idea thoroughly. Look for realistically at the revenue potential. Right back to that money side, right? Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean anybody's going to pay for it. So you got to figure out how you're going to get them to give money for what it is, whatever it is you've created. So look realistically at its revenue potential, and then can I scale it? Can this be the next Google, Apple of the world? How do I get it so that I can become a global international organization, which is mind-boggling, right? When you're just getting started, you're worried about the day-to-day stuff. You're worried about being able to get some sales in Baltimore, right? How do I do that? But you got to start thinking, okay, if I start getting some traction here, what's the next step? So you're always looking forward. I call this going to the balcony. You need to step away from your business on a regular basis and look down and start thinking strategically about your vision and mission for long-term growth. Every business needs a 5-year plan. Even though it may change, you need to map out a game plan, right? And keep inspecting yourself to do it. So as a business owner, take time to walk away from the business long enough that you can look down at it and see what you're doing well and what areas there's an opportunity to improve in. Bounce your idea off of family and friends with caution. Well, they may be a little tainted. I always have fun at registration day at the University of Baltimore, and I watch people kind of line up. Everybody lines up for the gaming side of the university. That's the most popular major at UB. And then I watch parents and students have a dialogue when it comes time to sign up at the merit school for a business major, and they pick entrepreneurship. Parents go, well, yeah, what are you going to do for a living? Right? How are you going to make money? What is entrepreneurship? Well, entrepreneurship, for all you those that are starting businesses, quickly recognize that you become an expert on every section of business, right? You're learning accounting, you're going to learn HR when you start hiring people, you got to do marketing, right? Finance, all of that. So it is a multifaceted exposure to business. So just be careful bouncing your idea off family and friends. They may look at your idea and say, yeah, but you need to go get a real job, right? Because this is never going to fly. Or your baby's really ugly. Sorry, it's not going to fly. Don't do it. Again, because they want you to take a safer path, but just being protective of it, right? But do listen to them. Sometimes they have some very sound advice that can be beneficial for you moving forward. Focus groups. Focus groups are bringing a group of people together to look at your goods or service. Hopefully they're impartial. Don't invite all your best friends, because they too are just going to nod their head and say, that's a great idea, I love it. They'll most likely support you versus your parents and relatives will probably be down. So you want people to give you an honest opinion about whether this idea is good or bad, right? And again, you still have to even take that with a grain of salt. I mean, back in the day, if Henry Ford, when he was starting to make his automobile, sat a group of people down around the table and said, what do you want to see in transportation? The response likely would have been, a faster horse, right? Because cars were new. Who would have thought that I'm thinking about a car as a means for my transportation, right? Cars were new. So again, you got to be cautious a little bit with it. So you take everything with a grain of salt. Random sampling groups is another good idea. Just randomly pull people in versus a focus group where you invited them. So that you've probably participated in that in grocery stores, right? Where somebody sets up a booth and they're randomly sampling a new product to get some feedback. They probably haven't rolled it out yet in full scale, but just testing it to see how people react when they taste it. Okay, sampling groups. Potential users are perfect. People that are going to actually spend money, if you get them to try your product or service ahead of time, great. They give you a little bit of money to do that, even better, right? And give you feedback, perfect, right? And you get some real live feedback on whatever it is you're delivering. Remember, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to apply. Stephen Covey, another motivational speaker. I like to really simplify it and say we have 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, and only 1 mouth for a reason. We're supposed to use all our senses to observe around us and listen, see, smell, touch, whatever it is that we're trying to learn, and only respond a little bit, right? We have 1 mouth, so we need to respond half the time, right? So that's how you gather information. You gather information that way about future opportunities in the marketplace, what's new, what's changing, what the next big hit's going to be, right? By dreaming. Right now the big switch is slowly, but pretty quickly, is electric cars. 10 years from now, the traditional automotive repair shop is going to look completely different. Now, would you want to start up a Jiffy Lube shop today, franchise that, or start your own lube business? Well, there's certainly an opportunity for it today, but where's it going to be in 10 years? Maybe your next business opportunity is, how do I get in the battery business? How are batteries going to need to be replenished? How do they get repaired? How do I rebuild battery packs? What kind of new servicing things are going to need to happen on an electric car? It's quite different than a gasoline car. So you're always looking at using all those senses and where future opportunities lie. And whatever business you're launching now, in 25 years is probably going to look quite different than it does today, right? Think big.